I've had a great career, and if I had to do one thing different, I think I would have kept writing and where I quit.
George Strait earned the title King of Country Music through decades of hard work and dedication, touching the hearts of millions with his timeless music. Despite his fame and success, he faced personal loss, but never let it hold him back. After more than 30 years of sharing incredible music with the world, George announced his retirement in 2012. Yet, the future remains uncertain. Now, at 72, his son Bubba has stepped forward to confirm what many have long suspected.
At 43, George Strait's son reveals heartbreaking news of himself father.
Is this revelation about George Strait himself? Or is there something deeper behind it? Join us as we find out. George Strait is now 72. His son finally confirms what we thought all along. George Strait Jr., affectionately known as Bubba, was born on May 14, 1981, in San Marcos, Texas. From an early age, those who watched him grow up saw signs that he carried more than just his father's famous name. He carried his spirit. While studying at Texas A&M University, Bubba began competing in rodeo events, quietly embracing the same cowboy roots that his father always held dear. Over time, he became a skilled roper in the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association, proving he wasn't simply riding on his father's coattails, he was living the life that George Strait had always treasured. According to the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, Bubba competed in many rodeo events, including the 22nd George Strait Team Roping Classic in 2004. He remained deeply involved in the sport until a moment that could have changed everything, an accident where he nearly severed his index finger in a wild rope loop. It was a reminder of how real and rugged the life he chose was. But even in the face of injury, Bubba's dedication never wavered. He was proving, without having to say it, what many had long believed. George Strait's legacy was not just musical. It was lived, breathed, and passed down. George Strait, now 72, has never been shy about his love for the rodeo. Nearly a decade earlier, George had opened up in Team Roping Journal, admitting that team roping was more than a passion, it was his heart's calling. And when asked about his proudest moment, it wasn't an award or a #1 hit, it was winning an event with his son, Bubba. In that quiet moment, George revealed something that fans had always suspected but never heard so clearly before. For him, legacy wasn't just about fame, it was about family. And now, through his son's quiet strength, that truth has finally been confirmed. Though Bubba avoids the spotlight, he's no stranger to the stage or the studio. As a child, Bubba's voice appears at the beginning of Heartland, the song that opens George Strait's 1992 film, Pure Country. It was a subtle but meaningful introduction to the world his father built. Years later, Bubba returned, not as a guest but as a creator, writing alongside his father on tracks like Living for the Night and Out of Sight, Out of Mind. His pen helped shape 4 of George Strait's studio albums: Here for a Good Time, 2011, Love is Everything, 2013, Cold Beer Conversation, 2015, and Honky Tonk Time Machine, 2019. He wasn't just contributing lyrics, he was keeping the sound and soul of Strait's music alive. In 2014, George Strait's Cowboy Rides Away tour came to an emotional end in Arlington, Texas. On that final night, in front of a record-breaking 104th 792 fans at AT&T Stadium, the most attended concert in North American history, Bubba joined his father on stage. Together they sang Arkansas Dave, a song Bubba had written himself. George stood on a rotating stage in the center of a sea of people, surrounded by his ace-in-the-hole band and 10,000 extra floor seats. But even with all the grandeur, the moment that stole the night wasn't the light show or the massive crowd, It was the father and son standing side by side, blending their voices and spirits. That performance, later aired as CMT's George Strait, the Cowboy Rides Away tour special, gave fans more than a farewell. It gave them affirmation. George Strait wasn't leaving behind a void. He was passing the torch. And in that moment, Bubba confirmed what fans had felt in their hearts all along. The heart of George Strait, his values, his music, his cowboy code was alive and well in his son. Bubba's presence has been steady, even off-stage. He's appeared alongside George at meaningful moments, like the 2007 Country Music Hall of Fame medallion ceremony, the ACM Artist of the Decade event in 2009, and the 50th annual ASCAP Country Music Awards in 2012. Though Bubba himself isn't on social media, his wife, Tamara Strait, often shares glimpses of their life together. A former San Antonio Spurs silver dancer turned successful realtor, Tamara first met Bubba at a Spurs game in 2005. They got engaged in 2010 and married just days later. Together, they've built a beautiful family, raising 2 children. George Harvey Strait III, born in 2012, and Jillian Louise Strait, born in 2016. Fans of George Strait have long wondered what would become of the timeless country legacy he built. Would it fade with retirement? Would the music lose its soul without the man who gave it life? But now, as Bubba quietly carves his own musical path, the answer is clear. He doesn't seek fame. He doesn't chase headlines. But through his songwriting, his stage presence, and the way he lives, rooted in humility, passion, and tradition, Bubba Strait confirms everything we've always believed about George, that his greatness was never just about hits. It was about heart. At 72, George Strait stands not only as the king of country, but as the father of a son who's proving that legacy isn't something you inherit. It's something you live out, one quiet choice at a time. Bubba may not wear a crown, but in every way that matters, he's the living proof of what we've always suspected. Following the surprising revelation from George Strait's son, it's the perfect time to take a deeper look at George Strait's journey and where it all started. George Strait's road to country music, the beginning of a country legend. George Strait was born on May 18, 1952, in Poteet, Texas. He grew up in a small town called Pearsall, located in southern Texas. His father, John Strait, was a middle school math teacher who also managed a 2,000-acre ranch that had been in their family for generations. When George was still a young boy in elementary school, his parents separated. From then on, he and his brother Buddy were raised by their father. Growing up on the ranch, the 2 boys spent countless hours working the land, learning firsthand the values and hard work that come with life in the rural West. George's musical journey began at Pearsall High School. There, he joined a rock band called the Stoics. George fondly remembers their passion for the Beatles. The Beatles were huge. I listened to them all the time, he recalled. Alongside the Stoics, George played in several other rock bands during high school. Even though he wasn't the most skilled guitarist, and country music wasn't yet a major part of his sound, he kept practicing and performing. After spending a year at Southwest Texas State University, George secretly married his high school sweetheart, Norma. In 1971, he joined the U.S. Army. While stationed in Hawaii, he spent his free time honing his guitar playing and singing skills. It was during this period that George developed a deep appreciation for country music, drawing inspiration from legends like Hank Williams, George Jones, Merle Haggard, and especially Bob Wills, who was famous for Western swing. In 1973, still serving in the military, George formed his first country band at the Army base. After completing his service in 1975, he returned to Southwest Texas State University and earned a degree in agriculture. By 1979, while still in school, he discovered a country band called Stony Ridge through a flyer on campus. George took over leadership of the band, renaming it Ace in the Hole, and became the lead singer. The band played frequently at local clubs around campus and in various bars across South and Central Texas, including places as far as Huntsville and Houston. They gained popularity in the region and even had the opportunity to open for notable acts like the Texas Playboys. The group recorded several songs written by George, such as That Don't Change the Way I Feel About You and I Can't Go On Dying Like This, for a small Houston-based label called D Records. Unfortunately, the records didn't achieve much commercial success. While continuing to perform, George worked on his family's ranch during the day to support himself. Although he had no music industry connections, a close friend named Irv Woy, who ran a bar where George's band played, had experience working for a major record label before opening his own bar. Irv arranged for some Nashville executives to visit Texas and hear George and his band perform. Though they liked the music, they felt the band's Western swing style wouldn't sell well nationally, and left without offering a contract. Undeterred, George made many trips to Nashville seeking a record deal, only to be turned down repeatedly. Just like those who had heard him play back home, industry executives were unsure about his traditional country sound, in a market that favored polished images and pop-infused country music at the time. Facing these setbacks, George seriously considered quitting music. Shortly after, he was offered a steady job designing cattle pens and planned to accept it. He even told his bandmates he was leaving the music business. Was this the moment George Strait's rise to fame nearly ended? Or could a change of heart be what pushes him toward even greater success? Stay tuned to find out. George Strait's rise and success in country music. However, his wife Norma convinced him to give it one more year, and that decision would change his life forever. In February 1981, major record label MCA signed George Strait to a recording contract. The initial deal was for just one song. If that single succeeded, the label would consider producing a full album. Throughout this time, George's band, Ace in the Hole, remained by his side, serving as his backup and touring band as he launched his solo career. That spring, George released his debut single with MCA, titled Unwound. The song climbed to number 6 on the Billboard Hot Country Songs chart in 1981 and was featured on his first album, Straight Country. This debut also included 2 other singles, Down and Out, which reached number 16, and If You're Thinking You Want a Stranger, There's One Coming Home. Straight Country was widely praised by critics as a new traditionalist breakthrough, reviving a classic country sound at a time when pop-influenced country dominated the airwaves. His follow-up album, Straight from the Heart, released in 1982, earned similar acclaim. It featured the first #1 single of his career, Fool-Hearted Memory, alongside the top 5 Western ballad, Amarillo by Morning, originally written and performed by Terry Stafford in 1973, which would go on to become one of George's signature songs. In 1983, George made his debut at the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, stepping in at the last minute to replace the headliner, Eddie Rabbitt, who was sidelined by the flu. This performance marked the start of a long-standing tradition. Over the years, George has appeared at the rodeo more than 20 times and has played for an audience exceeding 1 million fans. Throughout the 1980s, George Strait recorded an impressive 17 #1 hits. Between 1983 and 1984, he achieved a remarkable streak of 5 consecutive #1 singles from his next 2 albums, Right or Wrong, his first album to reach #1, and Does Fort Worth Ever Cross Your Mind, which earned a coveted CMA award. In 1985, George won the CMA Award for Top Male Vocalist and released his first Greatest Hits compilation, featuring tracks from his first 3 albums. That same year, he released Something Special, his 3rd consecutive #1 album, which included the chart-topping single, The Chair. In 1986, George once again received the CMA Vocalist of the Year Award,
the CMA Willie Nelson Lifetime Achievement Award, to true country music royalty, the king of country, George Strait,
and released his 4th #1 album, #7, further solidifying his status as a country music legend. Strait began the 1990s with his 10th studio album, Livin' It Up, which featured 2 #1 hits, Love Without End, Amen, his first song to remain at #1 for several weeks, and I've Come to Expect It From You. Both songs stayed at #1 for 5 weeks in 1990. His next album, Chill of an Early Fall, released in 1991, received positive reviews. Entertainment Weekly noted this album marked a shift for Strait, moving away from repeating himself in earlier albums toward exploring new material. It produced 2 #1 hits, If I Know Me and You Know Me Better Than That, but ended his streak of 31 straight top 10 hits with a cover of Lovesick Blues, which peaked at #24. The album also ended his run of 8 top-charting albums by peaking at #4. In spring 1992, Strait released Holding My Own. Although it did not produce any #1 hits, it included 2 songs that reached the top 5, including So Much Like My Dad. Later in 1992, Strait starred in the film Pure Country and released its soundtrack. This became his most successful studio album, producing hits like Heartland, I Cross My Heart, and When Did You Stop Loving Me? The album reached #1 on the country charts and #6 on the Billboard 200. His next album, Easy Come, Easy Go, released in 1993, also reached the top 5 on the Billboard 200. It featured popular songs such as I'd Like to Have That One Back, The Man in Love with You, and the #1 title track. Strait's following 4 albums, Lead On, 1994, Blue Clear Sky, 1996, Carrying Your Love With Me, 1997, and One Step at a Time, 1998, all reached #1. Blue Clear Sky debuted at #1, and Carrying Your Love With Me became Strait's first album to top the Billboard 200. From 1997 to 2001, Strait headlined the George Strait Country Music Festival, which featured stars like Tim McGraw, Faith Hill, Kenny Chesney, Alan Jackson, and others, to introduce these acts to as many fans as possible. The festival promised not to visit any city more than twice. It usually held fewer than 20 shows each year, but still was the 9th highest-grossing tour in 1998. Strait closed the decade with the album Always Never the Same in 1999. The album reached #2 on country charts and matched the crossover success of Pure Country by hitting #6 on the Billboard 200. It produced hits like What Do You Say to That?, Meanwhile, and the #1 single Write This Down. While reviews were mixed, Entertainment Weekly observed that by this point, Strait could take even the lightest songs and make them soar on the radio with his smooth grace. Overall, Strait scored 17 #1 hits on the Billboard country charts during the decade and carried his success confidently into the new century. Will George Strait's life continue without problems? Or is there a tragedy ahead that will change everything? Keep watching to find out. The tragedy that changed George Strait's life forever. Everything in George Strait's life once seemed to be falling perfectly into place. His music career was soaring, bringing him success, fame and widespread recognition. At that point, his daughter Jennifer was 13 years old, and he and his wife Norma also had a young son, George Jr., lovingly known as Bubba. Life appeared to be at its very best, but just when things seemed brightest, a heartbreaking tragedy shattered their world.
Strait was topping the charts with songs like The Chair and Nobody in His Right Mind Would Have Left Her when Jennifer was tragically killed in a car accident at only 13 years old.
Jennifer lost her life in a devastating car accident. Jennifer had been riding with friends in a Ford Mustang when the driver lost control of the vehicle. Tragically, Jennifer wasn't wearing a seatbelt. She was thrown from the car during the crash and was the only person who didn't survive. The loss of Jennifer was more painful than words could express. George and his family were left with broken hearts and unbearable grief. But instead of speaking publicly about their sorrow, they chose silence. They didn't issue any personal statements. Instead, George buried himself in his work. For years, Jennifer's passing remained a topic quietly avoided in interviews, a deep wound that was too raw to speak about. Even though George's music career continued to thrive and reach new heights, it took nearly 21 years before he found the strength to publicly acknowledge the pain of losing Jennifer. When he finally opened up, it wasn't through an interview, it was through a powerful, heartfelt song called "You'll Be There." The song became his way of expressing the deep pain he carried and the faith that had kept him going. It was a reflection of the comfort George found in believing in something greater. "That song was incredibly personal to me for obvious reasons," George said. "I'm a man of faith, and I truly believe we'll be together again in heaven someday." Losing a child can tear families apart. It could have driven a wedge between George and Norma. It could have ended his music career completely. But none of those things happened. Their strong faith in God's promises helped George and Norma find the strength to carry on. George Strait took his heartbreak and transformed it into resilience, moving forward with his music and with life. Even as his fame and success grew to incredible levels, George always stayed grounded. His unshakable faith reminded him of what truly matters: the difference between lasting joy and the kind of temporary happiness that fades with time. "We've learned to separate the man on stage from the man at home," George explained. "The George Strait who performs in front of thousands is just an image. The real George is the one who comes home to Norma and Bubba, a devoted husband and father. You have to keep those two worlds apart. If you don't, you're asking for trouble." In simple terms, George knew he couldn't live out the stories he sang about in his songs. He had to stay true to himself and the people he loved most. And not only did George and Norma's marriage survive the pressures of fame and the heartbreak of personal tragedy, it became even stronger. Yet heartache struck again years later. George Strait also mourned the loss of his older brother, John B. Strait Jr., who was found dead in a San Antonio hotel room, according to authorities at the time. A spokesman for the Bexar County Sheriff's Office, Ian Badillo, reported that John was discovered by a hotel cleaning crew on a Friday afternoon. He was 58 years old when he passed. Badillo stated that it appeared John Strait had died of natural causes. However, an autopsy was planned, and the results were expected to take several weeks. Just 5 days before the death of his brother, George Strait had been honored by the Academy of Country Music Awards as their Artist of the Decade. The two shared a deep family bond and childhood memories that made the loss all the more painful. Through all the highs and lows, George Strait remains the undisputed king of country music. What incredible achievements has this journey earned him? Stay tuned to find out. George Strait's record-breaking country music legacy. George Strait's success in country music is unmatched, setting records that few artists in any genre have come close to reaching. He holds the all-time records for the most #1 albums, #1 singles, gold albums, platinum albums, and multi-platinum albums in country music. Beyond the country charts, he ranks 11th for the most #1 albums across all genres of music. When it comes to gold and platinum certifications, only legends like Elvis Presley and the Beatles are ahead of him, placing Strait as the third highest certified artist in all of music history. With over 70 million records sold in the United States alone, he stands as the 12th best-selling music artist in American history. Since 2013, Strait has held the world record for the most #1 singles across all music charts and genres, with an astonishing total of 60 chart-topping songs. He's the only artist in history to achieve at least one top 10 hit every single year for 3 straight decades. Across all genres, he ranks second in total top 10 hits, just behind Eddie Arnold, who had 92. Strait's award shelf includes 23 CMA awards, including back-to-back Entertainer of the Year honors in 1989 and 1990. He made history again in 2013 by winning that same title for a third decade, a feat no other artist has achieved. He also holds records for the most CMA nominations of all time, and for the longest consecutive streak of nominations. The Academy of Country Music Awards reflect a similar dominance. In 2006, Strait was welcomed into the Country Music Hall of Fame, a rare honor for someone still releasing chart-topping music. He became only the second artist ever to be inducted while continuing to produce hits. At the ceremony, he performed his #1 hit, "Give It Away," before accepting his place among the greatest in the genre. On June 8, 2010, Billboard officially named him the top country artist of the past 25 years, confirming what fans and industry insiders had long known: George Strait is a true icon of country music. In 2024, at the 58th CMA Awards, Strait was honored with the Willie Nelson Lifetime Achievement Award. To celebrate the occasion, he delivered a rare and unforgettable performance of Honky Tonk Hall of Fame alongside Chris Stapleton, making it a moment fans will remember for years to come. Is George Strait's life defined solely by music? Or has he embraced a world beyond his career on stage? Keep watching to find out. More than music, George Strait's legacy of giving. Beyond his musical legacy, Strait gives back generously to his community through the Jennifer Lynn Strait Foundation and other charitable endeavors. This foundation was created to honor the memory of his late daughter, Jennifer Lynn Strait. Since its founding in 1986, the Jennifer Strait Memorial Foundation has primarily relied on private donations, many of which come through word of mouth and the dedicated support of George Strait's loyal fan base. The foundation focuses on helping children's charities by providing financial support to a range of nonprofit organizations. Strait and his longtime friend Tom Cusick recently hosted the 12th annual Vaqueros Del Mar Golf Tournament and benefit concert at Texas's Tapatio Springs Hill Country Resort. The event raised funds for Faherty's Troops First Foundation, a nonprofit established after the September 11th attacks to provide wellness programs, housing, and service dogs to soldiers wounded in combat, as well as support to their families. This year's event generated an impressive $2.4 million, bringing the total raised through these gatherings to more than $17 million. Cusick and Strait, who purchased Tapatio Springs in 2011, have hosted this event every year since that Veterans Day. Cusick reflected, "We thought hosting an event to honor our military heroes was perfect. And then we connected with David Faherty and Troops First, Since then, it's been an incredible journey. We both agree this has been one of the most meaningful experiences we've been part of, and we've formed close bonds with many who have sacrificed so much for our country and all of us. The event showcased performances by notable artists including Asleep at the Wheel, William Beckman, Wade Bowen, Keith Gattis, Randy Houser, Jamie Johnson, Randy Rogers, and Dean Dillon, Strait's frequent songwriting partner, along with George Strait himself. Supporting veterans and their families is just one way Strait gives back during the holiday season. He also decorated a tree adorned with blue ornaments to honor those who serve in dangerous roles. This special tree is on display at the Gaylord Opryland Resort in Nashville as part of the annual Parade of Trees. Additionally, part of this initiative includes auctioning a VIP experience to George Strait's 2023 concert in Denver, with all proceeds benefiting the First Responders Children's Foundation, an organization dedicated to helping the children and families of first responders. After decades of success and countless achievements, could George Strait be nearing the end of his journey? And is he subtly dropping signs that it's coming? Keep watching to find out. George Strait's emotional goodbye, the song that left fans in tears. The king of country music, George Strait, moved fans to tears during one of his recent performances.
George Strait. Overnight, Billboard reported that George Strait's concert at Kyle Field broke the record for the largest ticketed concert ever held in the U.S.
At a concert held in Philadelphia last week, the 72-year-old legend performed his heartfelt 2011 song, "I'll Always Remember You." This powerful track features a spoken bridge where Strait reflects on the idea of retirement. When a fan shared a video of the touching moment on social media, many responded with emotional comments, expressing how deeply the lyrics affected them. "I might have around 5 more good years to sing my songs for you folks," Strait said softly during the song. "But wow, it's already been close to 50 years now, and I still love it just as much as I ever have. When I walk through those curtains and see your smiling faces, I feel like I'm floating until I step off the stage and get back on the bus. I don't know how many more years I can do this. Maybe a few more, but I want you to know, when I finally walk off this stage for good and settle down far away from it all, I'll still hear your cheers and your screams in my mind, and I will always remember you." Many fans who saw the video online shared how much it touched their hearts and stirred up strong emotions. "Don't make me cry, George," one fan wrote on TikTok. Another person added, "This one's gonna hurt when he goes." A third fan shared, "Not ready for that day. The king will forever be the king." Even though his words made many feel like a farewell was near, Strait's representatives confirmed to Fox News Digital that he performs this special song at every show. Back in 2012, George Strait announced he was stepping away from full-time touring. However, the beloved country star still makes special appearances and continues to perform for his fans from time to time. Although he now seems more aware of the physical demands that come with life on the road, he hasn't shown any clear signs of slowing down. In September, Strait released Cowboys and Dreamers, his first new album in 5 years. And earlier in 2024, the Amarillo by Morning Singer shattered a concert attendance record in the U.S. when he performed at Kyle Field at Texas A&M in College Station, Texas. At that show, Strait performed in front of an incredible crowd of 110,905 fans in the heart of Texas. That audience size broke the record for the largest U.S. ticketed concert in history, a title previously held by the Grateful Dead for nearly 50 years. What are your thoughts on what George Strait's son revealed? Could this change the way people look at George Strait? Let us know in the comments section below. Thank you for watching this video. We hope you found it interesting. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the next video shown on your screen to catch up on your favorite celebrity stories. See you there.